Hey, Liz. Anthony. Hey, working on my little lighting here. Give me a second, guys. I feel like there's a glare on the screen, but I guess it's not. Thank you guys for joining in. I'm excited about this. I hope all of your friends join in. A lot of people watching in replay, but no doubt. Yay! Thank you guys for spending a portion of your Sunday afternoon with me. This is a really great show, a debut of a series that I'm doing. I'm really excited about this, and I'm excited about my guest! I am. Hey guys, how are you doing? A lot of people watch us in replay, so we like to just get started so we don't do a whole lot of time wasting because Instagram Live only gives us an hour. But welcome to Soapbox Sunday. I am Jermaine Taylor. Folks, today is the debut of the Saturated Melanin series. And what that is, there's a series of shows that I'm doing within my season where I am dedicating the spotlight to artists that are working in sports, entertainment, philanthropy, journalism. And I just want to highlight their achievements, especially in present day climates. I want to just make sure that people know that we are still excelling. I created the Soapbox for that very reason, especially for the entertainment sector. It's artists at large. You know, it's very hard to break into this industry. It's a very competitive industry. And magnify that times 1,000. And therein, you'll find the plight of, a lot of artists of color. It's just incumbent upon us to create our own platforms. But what the Soapbox is all about, it's about spotlighting people that are excelling, that are doing well, that are breaking new ground and just charting new territory. And my first guest, Liz Jenkins, oh my God, she is excelling and doing just that. She's a UCSD grad, and ever since she's gotten here, she has been carefully stating her claim in this town, from roles in American Horror Story to How to Get Away with Murder to countless of television ads. But her breakout role as Principal Biggs in ABC's Blackish, that's what's going to make this girl a household name. And I just can't tell you how proud I am to know her. She's a powerful voice. She's formidable. She's a force. She's Cherry's daughter, her baby girl. Thank you so much, Liz, for joining. And I'm going to get you on the soapbox. Hold on, guys. Let me add her on. Liz!
Hello. Hi.
Hey, baby. Thank you so much for doing this. You are like the first guest that I've chased.
I don't know if I knew that. This is exciting.
Yes, I've been chasing you forever because I just really wanted your voice, your presence, everything about you to just illuminate what I have going on, because I just feel like you are on the cusp of something, and I just want to be a part of it from ground zero. So you just make me proud. I'm so glad that I know you. How you doing today, sweetie?
I'm really good. Thank you for your amazing, wonderful compliments. Always welcome.
Oh, yeah.
I am super grateful to know people like you that are just so very supportive and so sweet and, positive.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge lack in positivity in the world in general, but especially right now, and you're someone I think is always just so positive. So thank you for being
thank you. I first saw your work some years ago. You did Ron Jerome McCormick, a mutual friend of ours. He did this television pilot, I believe, and
Oh,
you guys
yeah.
did a reading of it at the LA Film Center downtown. And I think you played the main character's best friend. Am I correct by that?
I think so. I have a really terrible memory, but I do remember being someone's friend, and I think it was the main character's best friend. And I do remember that. That was fun. I love doing things like that too. Just, I mean, I get it. Time is very precious and valuable, but I don't know. It's nice to help someone through their creative process, which is what it does. So, yeah, I remember.
I remember being drawn to your character because out of all the characters that were portrayed that night, you were soft spoken. Your volume wasn't really loud, but you had the biggest impact in the room. I remember during the feedback, people were like, they were drawn to your character, but the volume of the character was so low, and the way that you took care of the main character, it was just so powerful. And I was like, God, I really like her. And that's when I started kind of trolling you, and I would always ask our mutual friend Anthony about you. And then when I saw that, you were a UCSD grad and you had all these other things going, and then you're from Houston.
Yeah, and I'm from Houston. Yes, that is how we met. Oh my gosh, I love that you have such a good memory. It's funny, my best friend is in here. Her name is Lindsay, and I often joke that she's like my memory bank because I have a terrible memory until she oh my gosh, I have such a terrible long-term memory. I'm pretty good at like memorizing stuff or whatever, but she's like my memory bank, and I'll call her and be like, did this happen? So, I know, but I do remember that. I remember that reading. And I remember it was like at Relativity School or something. Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, you left an impression on me, no doubt.
Oh.
So let's just get into the meat of it. Let's talk about that 5, 6, 7-year-old girl, Liz, in Houston, Texas. Do you remember her?
I do remember her. I remember pieces of her, and with Lindsay's help, I remember more. So if she like chimes in the comments and corrects something, like she's probably right. But yeah, I remember 5, 6, 7-year-old Liz. Yeah. She was.
What did she watch on television? What were her favorite shows? Like, what did she have to watch religiously?
I was always a fan of, and I don't know if this is the right age, but I always liked a good sitcom. Even when it was like, maybe I was a little too young to be watching like, Full House or Family Matters. I loved like Rescue Rangers, Chippendales, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, not Chip and Dales. That's another.
Yeah, that's clarity here.
That I also like. But yes, clarifying. When I was 6, it was.
Context.
Yeah. It's funny because I really loved like Goof Troop. Like there was this thing going on Twitter the other day, and they were like, what's something that feels black but isn't black? And someone said the Goofy movie, and I was like, that's so true. Like I feel like we didn't, have a lot of like black cartoons, but for some reason Goof Troop and the Goofy movie, that felt black to me, and I ate up that content as a kid. So yeah, I was always into television and cartoons, and I was watching TV at a very young age.
So between television and during everyday life, that imagination that young Liz had, how vivid was it? Did she feel like she lived in it, or was it just something that she resorted to when she was bored? Like, how important was that imagination during those years?
It was very important. I have very crystal clear memories of talking a lot to myself. Like from walking from like my bus stop to my house, when everyone splits off, and my house was at the end of the street. So I have like a good, 3 minutes by myself. And I remember having conversations with myself. And I remember being aware that I was having these conversations with myself, and not, you did too. Yeah. And I never thought it was weird. I never thought it was like, a mental health thing. I just knew that it was like my imagination kind of, walking me through the rest of my walk home. And I think, some people listen to music or, would do other things, but my time was spent in my mind, like creating these characters and having little conversations with myself. Yeah.
Would you be willing to say those were the building blocks of where you are today, seeing the characters, being able to live in their heads, giving them the backstory, although you didn't have that language?
Right.
but I'm pretty sure those characters were well developed. You knew what kind of houses they lived in, how they looked.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, I think so. It's funny because I have such a not great memory. When things like that pop into my mind, it's of great importance then, because I'm very, very much aware that, okay, I'm remembering this vividly. It matters. Like, and especially when I'm writing, like if I'm sitting down to write, that's when a couple of things will pop in and it'll be like, remember when you used to walk home and talk to yourself? And, you know, some of it was like, you know, this was a little bit older, like more middle school age. Like I would straight up have fake conversations with, like, if I like had a crush on a guy or something, I'd be like, oh my gosh, did I say this to him today? No, you didn't. Like I would just have like a back and forth about what I thought went down, because we're so hyper aware of like what we think went down and what really went down in interactions. And I would like kind of replay those things, or just straight up. I, for some reason, also watched a lot of Star Trek when I couldn't sleep. So I would also like, like I would have these conversations with myself about those characters, because I mean I watched it, but I didn't really know what was going on, to be quite honest with you. I was like, what's happening? But I liked it. So yeah, it was definitely very imaginative, and it definitely bleeds into my writing now.
Exactly.
And creating characters.
So you'd be willing to say that where you are now, you had no choice, even when you didn't have any idea as to what it was all about. It was all pointing you in the direction that where you're sitting today. You were just hostage to it, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. I very much sometimes wish that I had another passion, because it's so hard. Being an actor and pursuing the industry through this avenue is very, very, very hard. I want to say in undergrad, I overheard someone say something like, if I could do anything else, I would. And that's very, very true. I often sit and I'm like, okay, well, what else can I do and be happy and love my choices? And it always comes back to this career. And I actually, I've talked about this before, but I had a teacher when I was in the first grade. I did a performance, and this teacher was like, you're a performer. You are born to perform. I don't, just so you know, like, you love to entertain people, and that's what you're going to do. And she's right. Like, to this day, like, and sometimes I think, did she kind of like push me in that direction, or was I going in that direction? But I already know in my heart I was.
I think she recognized what you were putting out there, and it was, and it helps to hear that, which leads me to my next question. When these ideas began to take shape, and I'm pretty sure that your mom saw that the way that you were moving in your head, and saw that you were always pretty much performing, you were on stage for the most part. Was it hard to have that conversation, especially within our communities, because this is often seen as a side thing, just to pacify, just to, you know, pretty much get you through into the real money job? Was that a tough conversation to have with your mom, or was it pretty much, sweetie, I've seen this ever since I've known you, go make it happen? What was that like, Liz?
My mom, and I know this is a privilege. I know this is a huge privilege that I have. My mom has been my #1 fan and supporter since the moment I started performing. She's a single mom. She's a nurse. She's on her feet all day long. And she made it a point to make sure I was at rehearsals, make sure I had a ride from rehearsals, make sure she was at every performance, make sure her friends came to every performance. And never once, when I said, I want to go to this undergrad in the middle of Indiana and it costs a fortune, she didn't bat an eye. She was so supportive of every aspect of me wanting to be an actress. And she, to this day, is like such a huge support to me, because early on, you know, when you're hearing no so much, there's kind of nothing anyone can tell you to make you feel better when you get those no's, those like, no. But something she said, which is, you know, a very common thing to say, but she always was like, what is for you will be for you. And like, just stick to it. Like, you're talented and stick with it. And that little nugget of advice has pushed me through to this point. And I know that a lot of people don't get that, especially in this profession, because in all reality, it's not easy to make a living doing this. But if you have parents that say, I know it's not easy, but I believe in you and I love you and I'm here for you. Like my mom, up until, 5 years ago, if I had a financial crisis, I had to go to my mom. Yeah, like, and she does not have a lot of money. She's, we're not privileged in that way financially. So, but it was that was how she could support me.
But in terms that translates to even more drive within. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you want to put that extra effort,
I would
stay
like
up
to
that
buy
extra
my mom
hour.
a house. I would like to buy my mom a house. I would like to buy a Tesla. Like I would, and also outside of that, I just want to make her proud. Like, even if
well, Liz, honey,
role,
about where you are now, you're already you've made her proud. I mean, you're going to make even more proud. So you're checking that box even more. It's done already.
Appreciate it. I hope
Did you go to an arts high school, Liz?
I'm sorry.
Did you go to an arts high school in Houston?
No, it wasn't technically an art school, but it kind of was in terms of like the theater department at my high school was very competitive. The band was competitive. The choir was competitive. The debate school, not the debate school, the debate department. It wasn't on paper an art school, but it was very much like the standards that all of those extracurricular activities had were very high. Like our school was always the top for all of those things, and for football. Like it was just it was kind of an exceptional public school, really. So it wasn't an art school. The art school in Houston was HSPVA, which is like loosely based on Fame, or Fame is loosely based on that school. And no, I did not go there. Honestly, I don't even know if I would have gotten in. Like it was a very
come on, girl, you had it.
High school.
It was just all about the district thing. You would have gotten in.
Right. Well,
so let's you mentioned undergrad, but let's fast forward to grad school. You went to UCSD. Aside from building your talent, perfecting your craft, perfecting what was already inside, do you remember some of the life lessons that were afforded you when you were there and that you pretty much hold to this day? Because, for the most part, college is all about what you gain outside the classroom. Well, some of it is for the most part. And I know for my particular, when I was in college, it was always what I gained between the classes that really stuck with me, learning how to be an adult, learning how to manage money better, learning how not to take this credit card that's so easily coming at me,
Right.
So it was all about those things that sort of build my foundation as to where I am today. And I felt that a lot of it. But I remember, the lessons that I still have with me, they always came out, for the most part, they came outside the classroom.
Right.
So when you were in San Diego, away from Houston, what were some of the things that you were gaining that you pretty much hold fast to today? Do you remember some of those lessons?
Yeah, I always have found in both undergrad and grad school that a lot of my lessons came from friendships and those around me. Like theater school is so great for bringing in so many wonderful people and lifelong friends that you'll have forever. Yeah. And I often, anything brilliant that I learned, whether it was like stuff about, my own self-confidence and, feminism or anything like that, was always from the friends that I'd made from being in school. And I absolutely, we had a really brilliant acting teacher at UCSD who was, in my opinion, I was constantly learning from her. Because it was the type of situation where it was like, we have Thanksgiving at their house, or we have Thanksgiving at our movement teacher's house. And so it always felt like I was learning constantly outside of the classroom, just with their generosity in terms of making the school have more of a family feel. And just like learning to, a lot of it was confidence stuff, because when I left undergrad, I wasn't a confident actor at all, because my undergrad was a really talented school with a lot of talented people, but it wasn't diverse. I didn't get a lot of stage time. I didn't understand Shakespeare, and all of that I got from graduate school. including the confidence to know that I could do those things.
Wow.
So yeah, I honestly, I would say confidence was like a huge thing that I got from the in-between classes.
Yeah.
And then it would obviously, of course, feed into the class, like going into grad school, I didn't think I could play a lead in a play because I'd never gotten the opportunity to do it. And gaining that confidence made me believe, like, not only could I be a lead in a play, I could be in a lead in any play I wanted to be the lead in.
Exactly. Yeah.
By the
Isn't it beautiful how life
demanding roles? Like, literally, like,
I love how life does that. It strategically puts people in place along the way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
What you didn't get in undergrad, you got in grad.
Oh my
and
gosh.
You're still living on those fruit and all that stuff that she gave you. It's such a beautiful thing. Oh my God. So you get to Hollywood.
I got to Burbank.
Oh, you get to Burbank. What were the first impressions? Like, I remember when I first got here, I thought, my God, this place is so dirty.
Well, I can't lie. The first thing that happened to me when I got to Burbank was like finances, because grad school was very cushy. My apartment in grad school was like $415. It was nice. I had a parking spot. I was like, ooh, I can do this. And when I got to Burbank, it was twice as much, twice as dirty. Like, it was
tiny.
I mean, luckily, and I lived with one of my classmates, Larry Heron. We lived together. So it was nice to have, like, we both were like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is hard. And
what made you go to Burbank as opposed to any other area in the Los Angeles metroplex?
It was cheaper. Okay. It was like cheap, and it seemed like it was close to auditions and stuff. Oh man, that first place that I lived with Larry, what a disaster! I loved living with him, but that place was dirty. Talk about dirty.
Yeah.
And it was just like a financial shock because, and then also, you move out to Los Angeles after grad school, you get like maybe 3 months, then those letters start coming in. They're like, we ain't gonna pay them loans back.
So you needed to get a job.
So finances was the shock. My first job when I moved out here, well, I had several. I worked at a Borders in the Burbank Mall. The Borders bookstore, and I made like minimum wage, like barely, because I was like super part-time. And oh my gosh, I was broke. I was so broke. And then I kind of like got into nannying, which was a lifesaver because I love children and I was really
flexibility with the nanny.
Yeah, more flexible and more financially stable. And then I kind of like finagled my way into law, and I was working at a law firm for a while, and that was even more stable. And then now I can live off of my acting, which truly, if I'm looking back on when I first moved to Los Angeles, this is a huge milestone for me.
I remember that post when you said you were not going to be working at this law firm. I remember, not that I troll you, but I pay attention to you. I remember that. And I remember thinking, my God, this is a moment for Liz. You know what I'm saying?
Was such a moment, because Lindsay posted, because she has a better memory. Yeah, I remember at one point, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I had worked like 30 days in a row because I had so many jobs and I wasn't paying. You know what I mean? You don't give yourself a day off when you're freelance. You just work.
I get it.
And I just was like, oh my gosh, I worked 30 days in a row and I did not give myself a day off, but I needed to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So it was definitely my.
No, I tell people all the time when and I used to be ashamed of it, but there was one time I was working at a flower shop. I was doing flyers.
Yeah.
I was trying to stock at nighttime at different stores. I mean, I had to, and I kind of didn't want to too much talk about it because, I'm a fairly educated guy. I went to college, but I was trying to carry out the dream.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it takes choices like that. And people outside this industry, they often don't understand it.
No,
they don't.
They don't. And I mean, it's almost like, gosh, I hate to say it, but it is kind of like a rite of passage for me. I would it have been cool to leave grad school and book a series regular and be like, thank you. That would have been really cool, right?
Yeah.
But my journey thus far is like, it's so much sweeter. It's so much more meaningful to me. I feel like I've been climbing a mountain, and that feels good, I have to say. Like, you would think that, you know, I think we all would want things to happen faster, but I truly do enjoy this entire experience, and it makes me so much more grateful, and I hope that that's forming me for something for, you know, forever. I'm always going to be
there's nuggets inside of those experiences that you impart into your work.
Absolutely.
I've often learned that myself. It's like, oh, wow, this was a character building exercise. I hated it the whole way through.
Yeah, serving.
But I like who I am now.
Serving, waiting tables is such a character building thing. And that's why it's such a rite of passage, I think, for performers or artists in general, is it really is like, well, really, you want some more water? But you got to leave. You didn't leave a good tip. Like, you become very much aware of people.
When you started auditioning, Liz, what do you... I'll tell you mine once you answer yours, but when the first audition that you had here, was it a wake-up call as to the way that Hollywood really is, or did you coast?
No, I didn't coast.
Okay.
I don't know what that is. I remember my very first audition was for Aquila Wood Casting, which is like this really big agency. Yeah. It was for a film. I wish I remember what it was for, but I went in there and, gosh, how do I say this? I just was
soapbox. Just be as.
I was just terrified. I was like, the first thing that comes to mind is I'm like, if I don't book this, I'm done. Like, for some reason, those first auditions are like, this is it. This is make or break it. And it's just not. It's truly not at all. It really is not. So I remember being like so nervous, shaking like a leaf, knew the lines, but then like went blank on the lines. And you know, I remember after the audition, the casting director was like, that was really great, thank you. And I was like, oh, she did say it was great and thank you. But then of course, like months later, you realize that's what they all say after every
right.
So I'm like, oh, I was as bad as I thought. But then I remember going on, you know, like they kind of flooded in because you're new to town and people don't know you and they want to call you.
Right.
I had like a really great one the next time after I realized that wasn't it wasn't going to be, that wasn't the end all be all, even though it felt like it was.
Did they teach you how to audition at UCSD?
Yeah, we had an on-camera class, but it's just, there's nothing like the real room. Like nobody can teach you how to hold on, how to maneuver your nerves to produce good work. Nobody can teach you how to like get there on time and know that the parking is going to be terrible. Like nobody, there's like so many things with auditioning, specifically in Los Angeles, I will say, that just you can't teach in a classroom.
It's a lot of mental acrobatics, I learned. When I was in New York, and my friend Anthony, he can attest to this. Auditioning in New York, to me, and maybe Anthony might agree, it's a little bit more conducive to your training because it's more theatrically based. You get in, you fill the room, you have time to take with the character, whatever the choice is. Whereas out here, you almost feel like cattle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's like you have to come up with all these great choices from the night before in this finite amount of time after fighting the 405.
Right.
It's a lot, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it's also, you have to eventually find a calm in your arsenal of what you know you can do, and just ride on that calm. After a certain point, you just have to kind of tell yourself, like, this isn't the end all be all.
Yeah.
If you really love a role, cool, have fun with it. But it's not like, so many factors go into, and I think this comes with like time, but time into the industry and hearing no enough, you realize that there's so much more to acting than what you're doing. And there's so much more to booking a role than what you're doing in the room. And the sooner you realize that and let yourself like just enjoy what you do for a living, the better, because you can go in there and do an incredible, like I could have gone into that first audition and done an incredible job, but I don't know, they might have had Jennifer Hudson already booked it. They might have,
and they were
like,
just
we're gonna cut
satisfying the moment. Yeah, satisfying the
at the
union.
time I had a wig on. They could have been like, why is she wear that wig? Like, there's so many like things that have nothing to do with your talent or you at all, that the sooner you realize that, the more fun you can just have auditioning. And also financial security helps, because then you're not, you know, hanging on to that as like your job.
The desperation.
So that's why I had 10 jobs. Like, so I could find that space of like, okay, well, if I don't book this, it's not ruining my whole year.
I have a friend that's on, his name is Vince, and he used to work for a huge office here, a talent agency office. And he tells me just that. He goes, oftentimes the decisions aren't about what you do in that room. It's about what's going on inside, on the other side of the desk. So you're just there to show up, do your best, leave the room, and divorce yourself from it as quick as possible. And that's a hard thing for we entertainers, because we love to please. We do.
And you want to hear a little validation sometimes, but
every now and then.
Yeah, the sooner you can find that validation in yourself. Like, I recently had an audition and I was like, oh, I really killed that. I don't care what happens. And that's like, to me, that's a goal that I've achieved as an actor in this town. To be able to say that confidently, know that my bills are being paid, of course, because that's very important. And know that, like, it's out of my hands. It's just so out of my hands at this point.
What was the first gig you booked? Do you remember?
Yes, it was Southland, which was on
Regina King.
Yes, at the time I think it was on like NBC or something, but it landed on TNT. Which, this was a fun story because I booked Southland. It was one of those auditions. I went in there and the casting director set me up because he was like, Liz Jenkins, that sounds like a famous name. And so, you know, I feel like a good casting director wants you to do their best, and he clearly did. They do. And so I did the audition. I heard that I booked it. I filmed it. I was like, I'm so excited. I met some amazing people on there that I'm still friends with now. And I like told everybody I was going to be on it. I'm like on Facebook, like, I'm going to be on the show. It's the pilot. Watch me. We watch it. I'm not in there. I wasn't in it. I told everybody. It was embarrassing and sad, and I was like, well, what did I do wrong? Like, because you don't ever get to see your footage if you don't, you know, make the cut. But then, like, gosh, maybe like a month later, my mom texted me, and she was like, you're on Southland. And I was like, what? And she was like, I'm watching it. You're on it. Mind you, I watched the pilot. I was not on it. Like, what happened? Like, she's 2 hours ahead, so I watch it. They moved to the scene I was in to a later episode. And this is so full circle with my mom. My mom kept watching that show because I don't know what possessed her to keep watching it besides that it was still good. But I feel like she had hope that, like, I was going to pop up on that show somehow. And without her telling me, it would have been, you know, a while before I knew. It was so, like, so sweet. And of course then I was like, okay, everybody, I'm not crazy.
You had to go back and retract everything you said.
I was like, okay, I'm back on, you know, because you have to celebrate. So that was my first gig. I was cut out of my first gig and then moved somewhere else.
Hollywood has this thing where and I guess it's just what they do. They assign labels. They assign stereotypes. For whatever reason. And we as fairly new people, when we come to town, you don't know what's going on, but you sort of see the pattern. You go to these auditions and you see the same people in the same, it's like, oh, I understand what they see me as now.
Right.
Did you surrender to it, or was there some rebellion in the beginning? Like, how was your process to getting to that point, knowing that you were being perceived a certain way? How did you get through that mentally? How did you work through it, Liz?
So when I first moved out here, I went out for like 4 types of roles, and they were all variations of the same thing. But like, it was like a nurse, a security guard or a cop, a prisoner, which is a lot. I think it was those 3, and it was like variations of that woman. And Not until I had like, I think it was like in 2017, I believe. So not that long ago, I was working, I got an audition for American Horror Story, and it was for a security guard, which I'd done it before. But she was like really sexy. And I was like, and that just came really easy to me. And I like went in, and it was one of those auditions where I knew I did a brilliant job. And I was like, okay, cool, see what happens. And then I booked it. And it was like such a validation for me that like, okay, a lot of people are seeing me as this niche character, which you see a lot of like plus size Black women being like the nurse, the security guard. Oh, the TSA agent. That was another one.
Yeah.
But this character was that, but with like a little sprinkle of something different. And it was so like, that was my immediate pushback of that. Because a lot of it, when you first are coming out and working, is survival. So I had to like, I wasn't saying no to anything. I was doing everything that came my way. I would never in a million years have been like, I don't want to read for the nurse. I read for everything. But when I did this role and I was like, wait a minute, of course this woman can be sexy and like have a sex life and all of that stuff. It just like something clicked in me, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to play anyone, first of all, who doesn't have a name, because a lot of times they were just like nurse or warm nurse or caring nurse or sassy TSA agent. I was like, I don't want to do any of that anymore. And also, I'm going to need to think that these women are like representative of what I want to see in the world for women that look like me. Like, no, I don't want to anymore play a role that's going to like further a stereotype of like, and I remember shortly after that, my agent or my manager or someone was like, oh, this casting office wants you to read for like, I can't remember the exact description, but it was like slob prisoner or something. And I was like, absolutely not. Well, that's not true. Let me be honest. I was like, do I want
You had to deliberate a little bit.
Yeah. It was because it was the first time I said no. And I was like, no, I don't want to be slob or whatever. It was super, super degrading, whatever it was. And I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. And I, no exaggeration, like shortly after, like I had booked Blackish like shortly after that. Like it was like
was that during the time? Was that during the time when the consciousness of the world was changing and you felt even stronger to make a decision like that?
Probably. I mean, there was like a calling out of the stereotypes in Hollywood. And there was absolutely like, you know, way before that, whenever there would be an audition, especially if something in the character description said like plus size woman, I would always want to go out for it because you don't ever see those roles. So I remember when Mike and Molly, the TV show on CBS, was casting, and it was like plus size woman lead. And I remember being like, I need to audition for that. But the casting office was like, we're only seeing Caucasian actresses. And that was always the case. If someone was writing a character that was a plus size woman, they were always Caucasian, like without fail.
Sure.
And that sort of did start to shift a little bit, but I mean, still not really. Like, even to this day, not really. Like, it's still, you know, you have to like either change someone's mind on what they've written and say like, well, could this woman look like me? Maybe it's not what you've written in your head, but could she look like me? Like, let me do a great job and convince you of that. Or you just have to say no when it's offensive. And
is that always the focal point of that particular character, their size, who they are? Or do you, as an actress, try to project something other than what's in the character description just to give it some layers, to excite them a little bit?
I'm seeing less and less of character descriptions that say like plus size woman, or like I think I recently had an audition that was like, this actress is fat, and I was actually, oops, sorry, my thing was like, you had your hour on social media, but you don't tell me, phone.
You're on the soapbox, damn it.
I'm on the soapbox. I'm so sorry. I'm finding your question again. It was
no, as far as like the character description. do
Right.
you add layers to it just to make it a little bit more interesting?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
and also just the best thing about being an actor is performing as someone else, but also bringing what you bring to the table in is truly all you can do differently to book a job over perhaps someone else. So I'm always trying to find that. And when, you know, a lot of things I go out for now, and some of this is from telling my representation, like, please, please, please look outside the box. Do not only submit me for things that say plus size woman or, you know, a bigger woman or blah, blah, blah. Like, submit me for literally anything that you know I can do, and I'll do my part. Because, otherwise I would have like 2 auditions a year. And and to answer your question, I always, always, always am like trying to bring what Liz does to the table. But there's not, you know, there's just still not a lot of, you don't see a lot of me on television. And when you do,
it's funny because I'm hearing your evolution. We talked about you getting here in Burbank, and all of a sudden now we're talking about you telling your manager, submit me for everything. So I hear your growth. You're translating and communicating it very well. Good job, Liz. Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. So, Blackish.
Yes.
Was it your very first time auditioning that you got it, or did you have to go in several times?
It was the Blackish story is very talk about advocating for yourself. I was in the middle of filming American Horror Stories. I got the audition for Blackish. My people at the time were like, you don't have time to do this audition. You'll catch the next one. And I was like, nah, I've not ever had an audition for this show. Can you ask them if I can send a self-tape? And this was, you know, self-tape is pretty common now, but it wasn't 100% common 3 years ago. And so my reps were like, you know, we don't want to, we'll get the next one. And I was like, can you please ask? Because I would like to audition for this role. And so they asked, and they accepted my tape, and they gave me like one adjustment and asked me to tape again. And I did it, and then I booked the role. And so I really went from like American Horror Story to Blackish. Thank you, whoever said something really sweet. Thank you.
That was Vince. And then that was my friend Frederick. Frederick also has a show at 4 o'clock today. Yay!
Yay! So, yeah. And talk about me pushing back with my reps. Like, I was like,
well, it got you to Blackish, it seems.
Well, it did. It also, like, you know, I saw the character and I read the sides, and I was like, oh, please let me do this. Like, I don't want to pass this up. And when I got to set, I was like sitting in my chair, super nervous, because I haven't done, even though I have a comedy background, I haven't done a lot of comedies. It's very hard to get comedy work in this town.
It is. Especially when you're...
You have to know people. So I'm sitting in my little chair watching, and I'm noticing that like they're letting the camera like roll at the end of the other person's scene. And I was like, oh, I wonder if you can improv. You got to improv. Like, I've seen the show. They're being improv.
Yeah. They're a little loose.
Yeah. And so I did the first take exactly as it's scripted. And at the end, I like improv'd. And they were like laughing to the point where it was like they were interrupting. You know what I like? They were like, oh,
wow.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to keep doing this. Like, I paid for improv school. I'm going to
get your money worth, girl.
And then I had another take, and I improv'd more. And, you know, those kids, Miles and Marseille, are so very talented. They were just like improvising with me, and all the kids were like improvising and laughing. And I think at one point I was like, don't laugh. Like, I was like telling the kids not to laugh, and it made them laugh more. And the director came up to me and he was like, oh my gosh, that was so funny. And the writer of the episode, her name's Lindsay Shockley, came up and she was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I was like, okay, I did my job today. Like, you know, it was kind of like a realization to me too in the moment that when you're doing a comedy, your job is to, like, you know, honor the words on the paper that the writers wrote, but also like lift it up a bit. You know, comedy writers like when you lift up their own words. And that's
Sure.
what I did. And I like learned that in the moment. And then like maybe a week or two later, they were like, oh, she's pinned for another episode. And I was like, well, how? Because my character was the substitute. Like, what's happening? Mm-hmm. And then I got the script and I was like, oh, they made her a teacher. Like, this character's a teacher now.
Wow.
And then I just went in and did the same thing. And I sat there. Well, I did do the same thing. But when I first got there, the writer approached me and she was like, we love you. She was like, from the moment we saw your audition on tape to like when you came in and just like ran with this character, like, we love you. And that was like, again, going back to the validation, you do need it, because that propelled me to just continue to do what I was doing. And
sure.
Now she's the principal of the school. And
congratulations, sweetie, honey. My whole entire family, they're like, you know Principal Biggs?
Oh my
I was
gosh,
like, yes, I do.
Sweet. Oh my God.
Even my fraternity brother was like, oh my God, I love her. So I'm like, you increased my stock.
What I love so much about Principal Biggs, when that first episode aired, you know, that's such a show you tweet about. Yeah. It's like the people's reaction to her where they're like, oh my God, she keeps it so real. Like, she must be from the hood. Like, this teacher is so like, I'm scared of her. And
relatable.
I ate it up because I was like, oh my gosh, they love the improv choices that I made for this woman to just be confident. Yeah. Like, she's the epitome of confidence.
Yes, she is.
Now the writers have written her to be this, like, she just goes toe to toe with Dre all the time. And like, with the exception of Tracy and like Marseille, the daughter, nobody really goes toe to toe with Dre. So to me, it's like the ultimate validation and the ultimate honor. Every time I get a script, I'm like, she said what? Like, it's so much fun. So yeah, that was such a, like, the proof is in the pudding. If you advocate for yourself and you know what you can do, don't stop pushing for that. Even when your reps who are to know more than you, they might not know more than you.
Yeah.
And that's not, you know, it's not their fault necessarily. Yeah. You know, you just have to be able to advocate for yourself, especially.
You're your own best cheerleader. You are. That's it. Oh God, yeah.
The opportunities aren't as much there as they are.
They're not. That's why we have the soapbox. Yeah. This is an advocacy for Jermaine Taylor, you know, and it's satisfying me. It really is. I feel like I'm Tamron Hall.
You are. You are already from Tamron Hall.
So I'm noticing that you're diversifying your portfolio. Last night, we were a part of a reading, a trailer that a friend of ours is on here, Lorene.
Oh, yeah.
PIC, the Perfectly Imperfect Christian. And I understood that you wrote what I watched last night.
Yeah. Well, I didn't write the trailer, but Lorene wrote this like amazing book that's completely very important for the world to see. It's like a perspective of Christianity that's like, to me, super, super important, and honestly very eye-opening and enlightening. So I've been writing for maybe like, I mean, I'm gonna be honest and say I've been writing for like 6 years, because I started writing a screenplay about 6 years ago, and I just finished it last year. And I love doing it, especially because everything I write for people that look like us, because I know that that's the only way we're gonna get work is if we're writing for us. Yeah. And I don't, you know, I was not sure if I was a good writer, but my girlfriend Molly and we decided to become writing partners for a chunk of time, and we came up with this series, and we loved it, and so we wrote it and filmed it and produced it, and like, it was the perfect okay, you can write, because once we put it out there, people were like, oh, this is very funny, like, we like it. And again, you know, a little validation is very helpful and propelling. Right. So since then, I've just been writing and writing and writing and trying to collaborate with literally whoever wants to collaborate, because I have so many stories on the burner that it helps me to collaborate and stay focused. And so when Lorene asked me if I would help her write. I think initially it was going to be a film, and we started to write it, and it just felt more like a short film or a pilot.
Right.
It was so much fun and so easy. First of all, like, you know, it wasn't like my normal writing where I have to come up with this whole other idea for a story.
You had a template to go from,
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, Lorene is so very funny in her own right.
Yeah.
I feel like she wouldn't tell you she's like a comedian, but she is a comedian. She's so funny. And it was just easy peasy to write with her. We wrote it in like no time at all. So yeah, like collaborating.
Well, her subject matter was very necessary.
Yes.
And you know, and I noticed that even watching it last night, I was like, wait a minute. You know, I don't profess myself to be the biggest Christian, but I am a fairly upstanding moral citizen. But I do a lot of shit that people be like, you know.
Well, that's what I like.
But that doesn't color my entire character. It's just a piece of me.
Right.
And yeah, she wrote something brilliant. I'm so glad she addressed that. She did.
And it was a challenge for me because I, you know, I grew up going to like a Baptist church and like church camp and Bible study, but I've gotten very far away from that actually.
Right.
So when she asked me to write it, I was like, I don't think I'm the right person. And then I think, I can't remember the exact words, but she was like, no, you are. She was like, you're so funny and like the story's there. And I was like, okay. And we started writing it and I was like, oh yeah, like this isn't like, I want to say, what is it? It's not like a Christian movie. This isn't like a Cameron, you know, Kirk Cameron asteroid and people are
no. Yeah.
It's so not that. It's very much an accessible top discussion about being a Christian woman.
It's very now. It's very modern, and that's what I took away from it. I'm like, this is today. This is who we are.
Yeah, and it was,
this time is like really winding, and there's so many more questions that I have. But I really want to get to this last question because I want to project something that I feel like is coming your way.
Okay.
What is your dream role?
Ooh, I love this question because I'm very, very lucky. A friend that I met working on Blackish, a writer friend, essentially wrote my dream role in a pilot for a show. So I, you know, having all this training and doing improv comedy, I wanted a role that was like equal parts drama and equal parts comedy. So very much in the vein of like the show Barry or Good Girls or even like Breaking Bad. You know how Bryan Cranston, I mean, less Breaking Bad because it's just plain serious, but like a comedic actor being able to dig into their well of, you know, training. And my friend wrote this pilot and he like, you know, sprinkled the plot to me once when we were hanging out and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that and that's really cool. And then he presented me with this like a rough draft of the pilot and I read it and I was like, oh my gosh,
this is it.
So this is my dream role. It's just a layered Black woman it's also like a nod to my mother because she's a mother and she's strong and she's also like boxes in it, which I was at one time I was like about that.
I remember those Instagram posts. You were learning how to box.
Yeah, and she's just so super complicated. She's hilarious, but also like gritty and just flawed for days, which Black women don't get to play flawed very often.
They don't, let
alone like a plus size Black woman. And I read the script and I was like, this is my dream role and we have to make this. And that's like what I want to put out into the universe because it's one of those things where I like had a dream a couple nights after I read it that we won an Emmy for it. Like I have a very
saw it in your head already, that imagination.
Like, it's just such a good, interesting story. Like I
will say this.
Legs.
Along with this role, whenever they do the life of Stacey Abrams, I will carry that banner that Liz Jenkins should play it. Because for some reason, in the shadows of what she's just done, I see you doing that.
Okay, I 100%.
I'm not kidding you. And that's what I'm going to leave this interview with. I see you playing the life of Stacey Abrams.
I'm taking it all because I love Stacey Abrams and I love her story and she's a beautiful Black woman.
Yes, she is.
Thank you so much.
Liz, Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so glad I chased you down and you finally said, yes, Jermaine, I'll jump on the soapbox.
Thank you for having me. This is so much
Oh my gosh,
fun.
sweetie, I will be looking for bigger and better things out of you in 2021, if not the end of 2020. And you just keep making us proud. Do you hear me, Liz? Keep doing it, sweetie, because you are making a difference.
And thank you for giving us a platform to talk and discuss, and I hope that people...
And I'm so glad that I know you. I really am.
I'm so glad
I'm just so glad that I know
like
you.
I said at the beginning, you're such a ray of positivity, and I just want to leave it on a note of people knowing that they should advocate for themselves and know that they are absolutely worthy of all the things that they want out of their lives and their careers, you know, whether it's acting or anything else. Just know that you deserve and that it will come to you. And
thank you so much, love. You have been kind to the soapbox, and I will chat with you soon, all right?
Okay, bye. See you.
Bye. All right, folks, that was Liz, the Liz Jenkins. I tell you, I chased her down starting when I first started this show, Soapbox. I knew I wanted her to be on because I knew that she would impart some nuggets, some tools that we can just put in our arsenal and just make our lives that much better. So, folks, the word of the day is advocate for yourself. And that's what I'm going to do even more, advocate for myself. Folks, thank you for jumping on the soapbox today. I'll see you again next Sunday, and have a great week. Bye-bye.